Well, good morning and welcome to Live Impact News. Welcome to the start of another week. It is May 11th, 10:01 a.m. The clock just turned 10:01 a.m. I'm Connor Reel. Super producer Sarah Calloway is here with us as well. And typically Sarah and I like to ease into a Monday if we can, but we do not have that luxury today because the news is happening. We start the week the way we ended so much of last week, and that is with the Hantavirus update aboard that Dutch cruise ship. Currently, there's a press conference happening in Omaha, Nebraska. Why is it happening in Nebraska, and how does that relate to what we're seeing aboard that cruise ship? Well, a flight with 17 Americans flew into Nebraska today. They are coming from that cruise ship. One of those Americans has tested positive for hantavirus. Another is showing mild symptoms, and passengers have been taken to a federally funded quarantine center at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. So now we go out to the University of Nebraska, where a press conference regarding all of this is happening right now. Let's listen in.
And whatever they are, and we can do make your stay as comfortable as possible, we will do. We have walked hand in hand with our federal partners from the White House to Secretary Kennedy to the CDC and all of their great teams. I am satisfied, and Nebraskans can be, that the rest of America can be satisfied that there is a strong plan in place and to ensure the folks are secure for their initial assessment, and we're working diligently to ensure no one leaves this security in an unsecured way at an inappropriate time. No one who poses a risk to public health is walking out the front door of the streets of Omaha or beyond. Again, I simply want to say thank you again, Dr. Gold, to you and your team and all of our federal partners and state and local agencies that have all had a hand in facilitating and making an impact on getting Americans back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And it is now a pleasure to provide some more information specifically on the operations and the condition of the passengers. I'd like to introduce Admiral Brian Christine. Admiral Christine is the Assistant Secretary for Health of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Admiral.
Well, good morning. And thank you all for being here. Thank you especially to our partners at the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response. Thank you to Nebraska Medicine. And thank you to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Thank you all for your leadership and your readiness in this response. At the Department of Health and Human Services, our approach is grounded in science, it's grounded in coordination, and it's grounded in transparency. This is a whole-of-government effort across federal, state, and local partners who are all working together to ensure the safety of the American people. And let me be clear. Let me be crystal clear. The risk of hantavirus to the general public remains very, very low. The Andes variant of this virus does not spread easily, and it requires prolonged close contact with someone who is already symptomatic. Even so, we have taken this situation very seriously from the very start. We've taken it seriously across HHS and particularly through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And I'm proud to see many of my U.S. Public Health Service officers have been actively engaged in the response. The CDC rapidly activated its Emergency Operations Center. It deployed medical teams to assess passengers and coordinated closely with international partners. They have notified state health departments. They have initiated monitoring of potentially exposed individuals, and they have issued clinical guidance through the Health Alert Network. And they have also brought together national partners through coordination calls. They've developed tools and resources to support public health decision-making, and they have ensured that both clinicians and the public have clear, timely information. Transparency has been and is the order of the day. And now, with the safe arrival of these U.S. citizens here in Nebraska, CDC teams are working side by side with ASPR, with UNMC, and with state and local officials to conduct assessments and provide ongoing monitoring and care. This is what strong public health system looks like. Experienced professionals, seamless coordination, and a shared commitment to protecting the American people. We will continue to follow the science, we will stay vigilant, and we will keep the public informed every step of the way. As I said, transparency is the order of the day. Thank you. Thank you for being here. God bless you. God bless the state of Nebraska, and God bless our republic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Knox, who's the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and he will give us an update on planning and as we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Gold, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. As mentioned, I'm John Knox. I'm the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response. I'll start by noting that what you're all seeing here today is a true partnership and a demonstration between public and private partnerships. As all of you are aware, last night, with the coordination of multiple federal agencies and in partnership with state officials, HHS supported the Department of State in a safe repatriation of 18 U.S. citizens from the MV Hondius. This is a coordinated, whole-of-government effort to safely return Americans home while protecting public health. Passengers were transported via Department of State plane from the Canary Islands to Nebraska with appropriate medical capabilities on board. HHS has worked with the State Department from the start for a seamless transfer back into the United States. Upon arrival, they were transferred here to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. UNMC was selected as the U.S. entry point due to its extensive expertise in handling special pathogens, and it's the only national quarantine unit in the country. It is one of ASPR's 13 regional emerging special pathogen centers, also known as RESPECs, that are within the National Special Pathogens System. ASPR has established this system over the years to prepare for high-consequence infectious disease outbreaks with trained personnel ready to safely manage situations like this. ASPR's mission is to protect the health security of Americans, and this response reflects the strength of the national preparedness system. As mentioned by others here this morning, over the next several days, passengers will undergo an initial health assessment and receive guidance on next steps from the CDC experts and other partners. This event reflects our ability to coordinate across federal, state, and local partners when the health of any American is on the line. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Gold to continue. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Secretary Knox. We have several people here, as of course you can see. Just to introduce them quickly, we have Brendan Jackson. Dr. Jackson is from the Centers of Disease Control and Acting Director of the Division of High Consequence Pathogens and Pathology. We have Captain Michael Gardner, also from ASPR, as the Regional Administrator, Region 7 of the Mission Field Operations. We have Matthew Ferrara, who's a DVM and is a HHS counselor. We have Dr. Michael Wadman here from the University of Medical Center and Nebraska Medicine and is the Director of the National Quarantine Unit. We have Dr. Angela Hewlett, who's the Medical Director of the Nebraska Biocontainment Unit. We have Dr. Deli Davies, who's the Interim Chancellor of the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Dr. Michael Ash, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Nebraska Medicine. And by the way, thank you for hosting us. And we have Dr. Ashley Newmeyer, the Director of Public Health for the state of Nebraska. And before I take your questions, I just want to say that UNMC and Nebraska Medicine are very honored to have this responsibility to repatriate these American citizens. There is no place in the country that they could be better cared for more safely and more effectively. As the governor said, it is the people of the state of Nebraska, and indeed here in this microcosm, it is the people of UNMC and of Nebraska Medicine that really make a difference to truly lead the world. And today, as you're all gathered here, there is no other place in the country where they could be more safely and more humanistically cared for. We have a very simple rule here, and having served as the chancellor of the Med Center for more than a decade of my life, if we treat our patients the way we would treat family members and loved ones, we're going to be okay, and that's the rule. So with that, we're very willing to take your questions. There are microphones that we will pass around. If you do have a question, I will recognize you, and there are some folks who are carrying the microphones just to be sure that everybody can hear your question. And if there's a specific individual that you want to address it to, that's fine, or we can just have volunteers.
Thank you. Hi, Waverly Monroe with KETV. Just wanted to talk a little bit about AP confirmed overnight that there was a person who was experiencing symptoms but may have not been tested positive for Hantavirus. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And is that person at the National Quarantine Unit, or is that person at the Nebraska Biocontainment Unit?
That's right. And so part of the decision was to make sure that they preserve space within the biocontainment unit here to make sure there's adequate care for anyone who might need it among the other passengers. Passengers were flown to Atlanta for further assessment and care there.
So that person is not here?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So again, just to be very clear on that point, we want to maintain optimal space in our biocontainment facilities on the small chance that it becomes necessary to use that space, given the individuals who are transported.
If you don't mind, I'd just love to add that we're going to expect to see people have symptoms. That's just, if you think in any given week or month, how many times do you experience some level of nasal congestion or upset stomach or something? We're being very, very liberal in how we're framing symptoms and monitoring for symptoms here. And so that's how the system is working. It doesn't necessarily mean just because someone has symptoms that they're going to end up having this illness.
Yeah.
Go ahead, since you have the mic. Hi, Diane Gallagher, CNN. Could you clarify first then, how many of the passengers who were on the plane from the cruise are here, and how many have been moved to another facility in the country?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can just address that briefly. So of the 18, 16 passengers are here and 2 are in Atlanta.
And the biocontainment unit, we have the one who had the mildly positive PCR test. Can you explain a little bit more about mildly positive? I initially thought that we were not testing people who were not symptomatic. I know they said this person was not symptomatic. Can you go into a little bit more about what it means to be mildly positive?
Sure, and I'd welcome my colleagues from the University of Nebraska to weigh in on as well. But I'll note that so this passenger, this test was not collected in the United States. The specimen was collected back, I believe, in one of the islands. It was taken on the ship. There were 2 specimens. One was positive, and the other one was negative. With these PCR tests, it's not necessarily, like, even though there's a sort of exact cutoff, there's sort of a range in where they can fall. And so for that reason, we want to make sure there's further testing to evaluate that at this point more.
And are the 2 individuals who stayed here, one of whom is in the biocontainment unit, did they have prolonged contact with each other, and that's why they're both here? Or what was the idea behind moving the 16 to other parts of the country?
Sorry, so 16 people are here, and that's for all the reasons that was mentioned. Can you repeat again what your question was related to that?
I guess then the 2 who were moved, what was the reasoning behind moving them? Was it just space, or were they traveling together? Are we keeping people together since this is a prolonged contact transmission?
Got it. I mean, it may be helpful for you all to explain the difference between the sections within University of Nebraska Medical Center as well.
Sure. I'm Mike Wadman. I'm an emergency physician and the medical director of the quarantine unit. We welcomed 15 passengers to the quarantine unit early this morning. One passenger did go to the biocontainment unit, and I'll let Dr. Hewlett address that patient. The 15 that were welcomed here were in good shape. They were in good spirits. They definitely were tired and needed some rest, so we did a quick assessment. We brought him into the unit. Very smooth and successful, safe transfer. A lot of coordination between our teams here, and I'd like to thank our nurses and techs in the biocontainment unit, as well as all the administrative support that we have for this, and also our federal, state, and local partners. It's definitely a well-coordinated activity, and really proud to be a part of that team. Once they're in the unit, we've been doing symptom monitoring as well as temperature checks. Everyone here is asymptomatic and afebrile and do not have a temperature at this time. They're all resting now, and we'll do further assessments later in the day once they've had a chance to sleep, but that's where we're at with it now. But all asymptomatic, all very grateful to be here, and we're just waiting for them to rest up, and then we'll do the further assessment. But to be clear, as far as Nebraska Medicine, we have 15 patients in quarantine, and we've got 1 patient in the biocontainment unit.
Maybe just explain the difference between the two a bit more, if that's helpful.
Sure. So and I'm Angela Hewlett. I'm an infectious disease physician, and I'm the medical director of the Nebraska Biocontainment Unit. And so with our 2 facilities, our quarantine unit is designed for well individuals who need to be monitored. It is not a patient care space. It is much more like a hotel than a patient care space. We don't have the typical things that you'd see in a hospital room. It's a much more comfortable environment, actually, with some things that to help keep people comfortable, like exercise equipment, and it's a larger space, TVs and things like that. The biocontainment unit is a patient care space, and that's our unit, which is also located on this campus, and that's where we provide hospital-based care to people who need it. And those patients could range from being, relatively well and stable to critically ill, requiring multiple procedures and multiple interventions. And so we do have one individual who, as you know, was taken to the biocontainment unit early this morning, and I'm happy to report that we assessed that individual. They are doing well, actually. They currently do not have any symptoms and have a good appetite, although they're very tired, understandably, but it's been a really long journey for these folks. And so, again, everything appears to be going very smoothly. I'm really proud of how our team responded and how we all kind of came together to execute this very complicated, transfer of multiple different individuals into these different units.
So I might just underscore that it's a contingency planning reason. They want to make sure that if other of the people that are sort of in the more residential side of that need potential medical care, there is space available. And so by moving other people who may have symptoms to another location, it makes sure there's that space to care for them.
Right, and then those are the preliminary conversations, planning that we had in terms of bringing in a number of individuals for quarantine is when those patients develop symptoms or test positive, what is the contingency plan? Because biocontainment capacity would not be able to accommodate 16, persons who would turn positive and turn into inpatients. So those conversations look at patients that may be identified early and travel to other biocontainment centers across the country, which is what happened in this case. Or, if we have quarantine patients here and they have symptoms, positive testing, where those would be decanted to if they were stable, or would go to our biocontainment unit. And all those contingency plans are in place. And the example of the 2 passengers traveling on to Emory is an example of that.
So 2 things. Camila Bernal with NBC News. How long do you anticipate people to stay here? And do they have a choice to leave, or are they being told you have to stay here for a particular amount of time? And then in terms of the 2 passengers that are in Atlanta, same question, how long are they anticipating to have to stay in this facility in Atlanta? And also that the one in Atlanta has symptoms. Is the second person a partner? Just more clarity on why there is that separation between the patients in Atlanta and the patients here.
It's a great question about the plan in terms of where things will happen. So right now, the passengers that are all in the sort of assessment phase, they're going to be here for at least a few days while we do assessments and then coordination from what happens next. They certainly have the option to stay here for the entire 42-day period if that's just the safest and most effective option for them. There's going to be an individualized decision plan for them to determine if it makes more sense for them to complete their 42-day monitoring period at home. But there's going to be a couple of things that go into that decision. First and foremost, do they remain symptom-free? But then also, do they have all the structures and support to be able to continue that period at home, making sure that they can be able to isolate in a separate part of structure from anybody else, make sure that they can contact their health department, get tested if necessary if they develop symptoms, or if they need a higher level of medical care, that's available to them. So there's a range of structures that need to be in place before anyone would be transferred to their home, and that would be done in close coordination with the health department in the states that would be receiving them.
Ultimately, though, will it be their decision?
Yes, we want to do this in the least restrictive way possible that is still safe, that protects the health and safety of both the passengers and their communities.
And then in terms of the patients in Atlanta?
I just wanted to make a brief comment. Ashley Neumeier, Director of Public Health for Nebraska. Our partnership with with our federal partners has been tremendous, as it has been with Nebraska Medicine and UNMC. But I do want to just reiterate, as the governor made a comment here earlier, that we are here also to make sure that there's a structure in place to make sure that no one poses a public health threat. I do, as the team is assessing and monitoring the individuals, we understand that they've been through an unimaginable experience already, and we know there's that human element, but we also want to make sure that there is a structure in place. Safety is number one across the board here, but we are here to make sure that there is no public health risk. So,
yeah, and we've been reassured that in event that one of these individuals who is asymptomatic chooses to finish their period of observation elsewhere in their home or elsewhere, wherever that may be, that they will be escorted under the very appropriate circumstances from endpoint to starting point. Yes, sir.
I just want to reiterate what Ashley was saying. What you're seeing is a coordination from Washington to the state to the local levels with the governor, with here at UNMC. This is what true public health care looks like. It's important for the administration. It's certainly important for Secretary Kennedy that we work together, that there are no silos or walls between us. This is how public health should work. This is how it is working. And I think this is a perfect example of how we are coordinating, how we are speaking, how we are interfacing and doing things together for the good of the nation, certainly the good of the people of Nebraska, and the good of the individuals who've been repatriated here.
And then the patients in Atlanta, are they quarantining there as well? Is there a reason other than space as to why they're there? Any explanation as to the separation?
Nothing more to add. There would be evaluation of symptoms there, and then next steps would be similar to what happens here.
And they're quarantining as well?
They're under medical evaluation right now. Similar.
Hi, Kaylee Schuyler with Fox News. I'm back here. If one of the patients who's currently located here in Nebraska were to test positive, would they remain here? And is it always a 6-ish week quarantine, or can it vary?
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll start off by saying that is why we've maintained space in the biocontainment unit in event that becomes necessary. And a lot would depend upon if that was the only individual or if there were multiple individuals that would get us to capacity of the BCU. And if that occurred, we would work with our federal partners very closely and make sure that they were transported to another facility that had the capability.
Sorry, I was just going to add on the 42-day monitoring period. The reason for that is that's the maximum incubation period that's been seen for the Andes virus. So the incubation period is the time from when someone was exposed to when they develop symptoms. That's really at the very, very long end. Most people who end up infected with this virus will develop symptoms much sooner than that. So that's a conservative time frame, and that's the number we're using. I'll note this is a much longer incubation period than we see for a lot of other viruses, but typical for hantaviruses.
Ian Lee with CBS News. You mentioned this incubation period being so long. We know that there are some Americans who already traveled back to the United States or in their communities. How can you guarantee that they don't have the virus? And can you guarantee that when people leave here that they will not be carrying the virus?
Would you like me to take that question? Certainly. There's been contact made with all of those passengers who returned. The state health departments have been monitoring them on a daily basis, including symptoms and temperature checks. They have plans in place to make sure that they can isolate effectively in their home should they develop symptoms. If they are developing symptoms, they have ways to get tested safely and to make sure that they're not going to spread it to others. Again, based on what we know about this virus, and this, again, I want to emphasize, this is not a brand new virus. This is a virus, even though it's new to many of us, it is a virus that has been known for decades now, and there's been outbreaks that have been dealt with in other countries, and even here in the United States. This is not the first time we've had Andes virus in the United States before. The data that we have now all suggests that transmission that spread between people happens when people are symptomatic. And so I think that gives us, when they have symptoms. And so that gives us one layer of added protection to know when the risk is going to be greatest and how we can best protect the health and safety of the passenger and the American public.
Can you give us more details about those other Americans? What kind of procedures are they undergoing? Are they in quarantine as well? What medical treatment are they receiving?
So they're not receiving medical treatment when they're not symptomatic, and it would only be for evaluation or testing, or if their symptoms progressed, then they were required if it would turn out to be positive, or they needed care for something else. They're following the recommendations that we have in our overall guidance for this daily monitoring and contingency planning.
And when it comes to testing, there was one person who's asymptomatic and they tested positive. With this testing, can you test everyone and just see if they have the virus? And this person who has symptoms, have they been tested? Are they confirmed positive with the virus?
So when it comes to testing, I actually will defer to my colleagues at University of Nebraska to discuss their plans on testing. The traditional way of managing hantavirus testing has been that you really focus on testing people who are symptomatic or having symptoms. That's the current stance right now, but clearly we're going to keep reevaluating this as we learn more about this virus. And I'll turn it over to my colleague here.
I mean, we're in the process of evaluating.
Okay, so that press conference ongoing, that is live right now in Omaha, Nebraska, and you can hear, we learned so much just from listening to professionals discuss this, but I think, again, the thing that we've heard over and over again is a continued sort of diminishing of the public health threat, the acknowledgement that this is not like COVID, that this is, in fact, a disease that there is much more awareness, education, and knowledge about, and how that will impact the ability to sort of contain whatever issues there may be. For now, though, again, 17 Americans flew into Nebraska. One tested positive but has no symptoms. The other there is one other who is showing some symptoms. And then they continue to say, the risk to the public remains very low. Transfer of the disease involves what was described, I think, as close contact for a period of time with someone who's already experiencing symptoms. So it's a little bit harder to just sort of super spread maybe based on some of what the professionals there have been saying. Now, the reason we came out of that press conference, because we know that this story has generated just enormous interest, is because we have Patrick DeHaan from Gas Buddy who's about to join us here. There was another uptick in gas prices as of Monday morning, $4.29 a gallon, the average throughout Virginia. And so we're having Patrick DeHaan come on. We'll talk to him a little bit about the continuance of that story. If this is live after that, we'll go back to it. But for now, a commercial break. Patrick DeHaan, more hantavirus coverage to come later on down the stream. We'll see you in a sec. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now. We are going to welcome Patrick DeHaan from Gas Buddy onto the show. Patrick, another Monday morning, another interview with you, another interview amid surging gas prices. It's good to see you. How's your week starting off?
Well, it's, kind of the calm before the storm here, looking at some of these numbers. Unfortunately, the weekend, we're always hoping that there's going to be some sort of end in sight to the situation as it unfolds, but we didn't get that. President Trump saying that Iran's offer was totally unacceptable. So a bit of back to the drawing board here this morning. Oil prices, as you would expect, are jumping. National average has come down a bit over the weekend. We're down about 10 cents a gallon from our peak here, which is good news, but that's maybe where the good news ends. I do expect that gas prices may jump up a bit here over the course of this week after that disappointing news that Iran and the deal they offered isn't up to snuff, and that could push oil prices up. Oil prices were closer to $100 a barrel in overnight trade. It looks like we're down to about $97 a barrel. So there may be some other news in the background here, but back to the drawing board. Another week starting off with the Strait of Hormuz closed. I believe this is now the 11th straight Monday the strait has remained closed, and you and I are paying certainly more at the pump because of it. Diesel prices now nationally just about 20 cents a gallon away from reaching a new all-time record. And I do believe that diesel may see a new record here in the next week or two.
Keeping our eyes out for that diesel record, of course, and that affects so many more industries than just, filling up your car to get to work. And so that's something we're always monitoring. You mentioned other news in the background that could potentially impact prices. Can you expand on that a little bit? What else could be sort of a factor here in what we see?
Well, I haven't looked at all the headlines yet this morning, but as I mentioned, oil was closer to $100 a barrel overnight last night. There may be something I didn't see when I woke up this morning. Generally, when we see oil going from $100 in Sunday night trade back down to about 97, there may be a little bit of a development that I haven't read about here this morning. I know the president is in China meeting this morning with Chinese leadership. So that is something we'll have to look at as I'm trying to read the headlines here very quickly. Iran is dismissing Trump's criticism of their latest proposal. So maybe the market is hoping that Iran would be back to the drawing board. Parties are talking back and forth. That's good. But yet not the development that we are seeing in reopening the strait. So another week starts with the strait closed, oil prices inching up, and that likely will impact gas prices here in the next couple of days. The current decline that we saw over the weekend in the national average was thanks to optimism that this deal was going to materialize mid last week. Oil prices fell back below $100 as the president talked about this deal. Well, now it hasn't happened, so oil prices could start to reaccelerate again.
And that, we see that negotiations are open, a proposal is sent, prices go up, and then when that proposal comes back and it doesn't lead to a permanent ceasefire, we see prices go down and then prices go up. So it's the same thing. We're riding this wave of headlines. I'm glad you kind of mentioned looking through the headlines to try to find those clues and breadcrumbs. We really are just waiting on the news of the day, and if it's positive, prices improve. If it's negative, they go back up. So it is an interesting situation that we're all in now. And, would you say that for people who are like, oh, I can time this, I'm going to try to time this out, I'm going to pay attention to the news, and I'm going to know when I can get the best deals, is that advisable or even possible for just, sort of regular people who are getting news from everyday sources?
Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day. That kind of phrase is somewhat fitting. I mean, to give you a sense, I mean, I've mistimed it now a couple times. So you might get right occasionally, but I've kind of given up on trying to time the market. Headlines develop on their time schedule, not mine. So this is one of those things that you have to be resigned to realize or be okay with the fact that the headlines are just going to happen completely outside of anyone's control. So you might time it. I mean, I think this morning might be a short-term good idea to fill your tank up, but again, admittedly, I've been wrong a couple times as well. So I would just love for this thing to for the strait to reopen, for things to normalize. I think a lot of Americans are not happy as we inch closer to Memorial Day that gas prices are still well above the $4 a gallon mark in most of the country. Gas Buddy tracking now only 3 states where gas prices are below $4. Thankfully, and I don't know why I'm even saying thankfully, but I had the opportunity over the weekend myself to fill up for less than $4, which seemed like a good deal.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you. If you get less than $4, you jump on it. If I got less than $4 and I even had half a tank, I might just fill that thing up while I was rolling around. Now, you mentioned resignation. I'm wondering overall, big picture, and again, it's all relative. In some aspects, we talk about this war having stretched on for some time. In other aspects, it's still a relatively short period of time. Have you guys noticed any sort of increase in interest or actual tangible transitions to people maybe saying, well, now's the time for me to go get an electric vehicle? Maybe I was thinking about it. It might have been in my future at some point. But has that been an impact of this at all, of people deciding to make that move? Have you guys seen that?
Have I seen it personally? No, I'm sure at a fairly low level it's happening. But keep in mind, the federal incentives went away. I think it was the end of 2025, or they phased out. So, I'm sure there's a couple people out of every 100 that are looking at electric vehicles more seriously, but it's not like everyone's going out there and spending tens of thousands of dollars on a new electric vehicle. Here's the other thing to think about that may reduce the ability for Americans, or the desire for Americans to do that, is we've all been watching the narrative about data centers and electricity prices going up. So you may be trading one form of expensive fuel for another form of expensive electricity, as data centers really start to push electricity bills up across the country. So I don't know that a lot of Americans want to spend tens of thousands of dollars when electricity prices have been going up in virtually every state compared to last year. It's harder to make that trade-off now, and that's becoming something, along with gas prices going up because of the Strait of Hormuz. I think a lot of Americans are very in touch with utility prices having surged over the last year. And a lot of it because a lot of these massive power-hungry data centers.
It's a great point, and it speaks to the depth of the affordability crisis that so many are feeling. Is where can I turn to get some relief? Now if someone is looking for relief, and we've talked about how trying to time these things is just really, really difficult to do, and comes down to just getting lucky. If people said, hey, I'd be willing to go to a gas station that's a little out of the way if it meant that I could get better prices, are there locations that are more prone to having a slightly lower price, both in terms like geographically or industrially?
Yeah.
Are there certain places you can go?
I mean, there certainly are. I went back to Michigan. I'm in Illinois for Mother's Day, and on the way home, I drove 3 miles south of the interstate to fill up for a station that was about 30 to 40 cents lower than everyone else. It was $3.94, and all the truck stops and some of the other stations near the highway were closer to $4.30. So, there's always an opportunity to find a station at a lower price. And the Gas Buddy app is, obviously I work for Gas Buddy, but it's also a great app to find where those lower prices are, whether they're in one area of a town or another. It's harder to know because there's never one spot that's always cheaper. at least in my experience, that it's rarely that I've seen always low prices in one area. Sometimes they pop up in some communities, and it's about tracking them down and finding them, and then figuring out a way that maybe you deviate the way you take to work or the way you take to school. Maybe you're like me. I'm driving back to Chicago. I would have had to go by these stations, and I just track a few more miles to the south, and I save 40 cents a gallon on an empty tank. That's absolutely worth it for me. But yeah, I mean, there's almost always an opportunity to save a lot of money on filling up. And the Gas Buddy app is probably at the top of the list. I mean, Google Maps can do it in a different way. But once you become used to one of these platforms, pick one. Once you become used to it, it's muscle memory. You only spend 15 or 20 seconds looking for those lower prices, and boom, I saved $4 or $5 on a fill up.
Okay, so use your resources, including potentially the Gas Buddy app, to try and go find those more advantageous options. All right, Patrick, I think that's all I got for you today. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Oh, we'll keep an eye on everything here, but yeah, expecting that diesel prices could hit a record. And again, it's still going to be a bumpy ride for gas prices. If and when I get the chance to break the news that, things are going to improve, hopefully we'll be able to do that soon, but definitely waiting for that.
All right, we're looking forward to the day. We appreciate you taking some time with us on this Monday afternoon, however, and we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Patrick DeHaan with Gas Buddy, as always, giving us a little bit more insight into what we're dealing with, and we continue to ride that roller coaster. The news changes day in and day out, and the gas prices certainly reflect that, as there is yet to be a permanent solution to the war in Iran and a permanent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Let's do an update here real quickly just to speak some context to what Patrick was saying. The United States and Iran still having trouble turning that ceasefire into a permanent solution. That also includes the two sides exchanging fire in recent days. Ships and Gulf states have been targeted. Fighting has flared up between Israel and Hezbollah, the militant group located in Lebanon. And President Donald Trump on Sunday said Iran's response to his latest proposal for peace was, all caps, quote, totally unacceptable. Now, Patrick also mentioned there's a trip to China today for President Trump where he will ultimately see Chinese President Xi Jinping. How does that impact the situation in Iran? China and Iran are allies in many ways, including having very, very strong economic ties. Now, could that lead to a situation where China and President Jinping are able to help sort of push this conflict towards a more permanent solution? Or is it something where ties will be more strained between Trump and Jinping because of the conflict with Iran? It's stuff that we simply won't know until the summit is over, but it's all worth sort of mentioning as context towards our coverage of that to come later on today. Okay, let's take a quick commercial break. When we get back, Craig Moeller is in the studio. Perhaps a forecast to come from meteorologist Craig Moeller. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now. Let's do a brief reminder that the live press conference in Omaha, Nebraska regarding the Hantavirus is ongoing. At the top of your screen, you see the press conference in action. At the bottom of your screen is the cruise ship where this outbreak took place. It has simply been sitting there other than going to Tenerife in Spain and having passengers from the ship fly out to more than 20 countries in an evacuation effort. That includes 17 Americans who have flown in to Omaha, Nebraska. Why Omaha? Well, there's a federally funded quarantine area in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as the University Medical Center. It was used during early COVID. It was used during Ebola, all to try and contain pandemic-level diseases. One person from those 17 Americans has tested positive with no symptoms. One has begun showing some symptoms. 32 passengers still aboard that ship as it heads back to the Netherlands eventually. Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's refocus and let's allocate that focus over to meteorologist Craig Moeller, who is here with a weekly forecast. Craig, I thought it was quite a beautiful weekend, actually.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Temperatures yesterday, 81 officially at Norfolk International. What a great beach day. I took my wife out, and we just hung out for a couple hours on the beach. Great time, and we weren't alone. There were several hundred of our closest friends out there as well.
I went for a walk on the beach as well. It was packed.
Yeah, lots and lots of boats.
It looked like the 4th of July out there.
Yeah, and parking a premium as well anywhere close to the water. But what a day. I mean, an early taste of summer, and it was nice. Now, remember, though, we need rain, and we're looking at the almanac so far. For the month of May, we had a warm weekend, 78 Saturday, 81 on Sunday, and we actually got a little bit of rain on Saturday morning, about 3/100 of an inch officially at Norfolk International. As we take a look here, and again, you got to love our connections here with the studio stuff. A little wonky for the moment, but we did pick up 3/100 of an inch of precipitation at Norfolk International. That was Saturday morning. Most of Saturday turned out nice, and then Sunday was gorgeous. Right now, we are 4.25 inches below average for the year. So we need more rain, and we're going to get into the radar here in just a moment. I think I can override this communication thing here. Basically, what we're going to find across the area, showers out there. And the reason that it's good that we take a look at this right now, Sarah, you see those areas of rain. And let's take this full. The areas of rain off to the north and west. We do have the wet weather that is occurring out there. Remember, these were areas that were absolutely on the way dry side when we got all that heavy rain last Thursday. We had 1.5 inches in Norfolk. Some of the areas seeing the rain right now, Northern Neck, Middle Peninsula, areas north of Richmond, they got next to nothing. I mean, just a barely more than a trace when we got all that rain last week. So this is truly a blessing that we have this, and I am delighted to see that steadier rain coming down right now. All right, as we take a look, what you're going to find across the area, those showers that are to the north and west, they will eventually come into play here for us, and we're going to see the shower chances increasing later on. Temperatures dropping as we go through the afternoon. We're going to fall back into the upper 50s. The rain chances across the south side, they'll be pretty hit and miss, and I can come back out on camera. I don't know why we've lost connection with trying to get Max 1 up here. Is that Max 1 that you're taking as a source? Okay, it is. Sarah's giving me that. So again, I know that computer's up, but the communication link between this studio and that one is down right now. Here's what you need to know. For Hampton Roads this afternoon, especially after, say, 3 o'clock or so, we'll see chances for light showers. Obviously, I just showed you what's happening right now with the radar. North and west, that rain continues. That's right now. I mean, late morning, early afternoon, there'll be chances for showers there. If you live in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Suffolk, areas down to the south into North Carolina, we're going to have to wait a little bit. Could there be wet conditions for the evening commute? Yeah, there's a chance. The activity should be lighter, but I think we'll get something. We expect anywhere from a few 100ths of an inch, maybe up to 1/10 of an inch in some spots, enough to keep the roads a little damp during that evening commute. During the evening hours between 7 and 8, most of this rain moves out. There's a live look up in Newport News, and you see the fountains there. One of the things you'll notice, the winds have been picking up from the north-northeast. We'll see winds 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting 25 to 30. The rain that's across the area will wind down this evening, and we're going to see clearing overnight. Tomorrow's going to be sunny. We're going to see a high tomorrow near 69. It's pretty nice. For Wednesday, we're going to see 79 for a high. It's also going to be a beautiful day. Very nice on Wednesday. By Wednesday evening, we're going to find, I think, chances for showers once again. And the rain chances will really increase as we go late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. By 8, 9 o'clock Thursday morning, the wet weather moves out. Then it turns beautiful again Thursday afternoon, Friday, and Saturday into Sunday. Guys, this weekend, temperatures back up in the mid-80s on Saturday and upper 80s on Sunday. By next week, highs in the lower 90s. Get ready for that.
That is spectacular. That was the way you built that up to the weekend was pristine. I was just waiting with bated breath. Where is he about to take this?
Where are we going,
It's raining. The rain's going to clear out, and then a beautiful weekend coming our way.
It's going to be nice and warm.
That.
I will tell you again, the rain that we get now and again late Wednesday night into Thursday, it's all beneficial. So we'll take it. Be careful on the evening commute. Again, little damp in spots. And then if you're traveling north or west, know that you will run into showers, especially once you get northern neck, middle peninsula, maybe the eastern shore, and areas north and west of Richmond. They're dealing with rain right now.
A couple things to speak to what you're saying. We have a live look, Washington, D.C. right now, and rain is steady coming down, kind of close to the White House area up there. That's one of our live feeds. And then you mentioned the wind that we saw out in Newport News. We've got a shot of the Virginia Beach oceanfront. Strong wind. We've got another shot here elsewhere in Virginia Beach. The American flag is just blowing straight out.
Sarah is scrambling.
I noticed there was a lot of movement over there.
There's a high wide. If you want to pull the oceanfront, you can see the flags there. That's at our Thompson Creek Window Company sky view from the DQ down on the boardwalk. The winds are coming in from the northeast. I'll also mention that we have small craft advisories up for the bay and the ocean. You can see those waves are breaking right now, 3 to 5 feet. Occasionally you could see a 6-footer, so those waves building a bit. You can see, though, folks just walking the boardwalk. It is not terrible out there.
Yeah.
It's just getting a little breezy. And, oh, guess what? That happens at the ocean front. We have
That's part of the game, baby.
That's part of it. It's part of the reason we love to live here. If you were wanting to check up in D.C. again, well, it's set up for an interview. You can see some lights there, but the ground is soaking. And keep in mind, we are not alone. When we talk about our drought conditions here being moderate down to the south, severe across Hampton Roads, those areas up to the north, the D.C. area, also in severe drought. And again, with the radar, Sarah, when we were looking at Max 1, that area seeing the rain in northern and central Virginia and then western parts of Virginia, some of those areas have been in extreme drought. So again, it's all good.
Okay, so that is your Monday forecast from Craig Muller. He gave us a look at the whole week. We'll continue to check in on that as the days progress, but for now, we appreciate your time. And people don't know behind the scenes, you've given us an immense amount of time. Next time that you're here, we'll do top 10 states in the United States in which to live.
Yeah, ones that are most popular and ones that maybe aren't as popular. We were talking about that.
That was Craig's number one topic here. Okay, wrap sign number 2 from Sarah. It means we've got at least 2 more before we actually need to go to break. But we will take this opportunity to go to commercial break. We'll be right back with more Live Impact News. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We return to the story with which we began our stream. That is the Hantavirus outbreak aboard the Dutch cruise ship that has been happening for about a month now. It left on April 1st. A passenger did die on April 11th, and since then we've had near constant updates as Hantavirus has spread throughout the ship. 6 have been infected so far. 3 passengers have passed away. Not outside of those 6 that have been infected. And now evacuations are occurring as the boat sits off the coast of Tenerife. Now that cruise ship is currently refueling as we speak, but we do know that 32 passengers will remain on the ship to go back to the Netherlands. There will be passengers being flown out to more than 20 countries as part of that evacuation effort. That includes the United States of America. 17 Americans flew into Nebraska today. 1 tested positive with no symptoms. Another was showing symptoms, but we don't have any word on if they were tested and if it was positive. Passengers were taken to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. There's a federally funded quarantined facility there. That facility was used during COVID. It was used when Ebola was happening. And so this is the place to be for those passengers and for all Americans who are looking to figure out what's going on and how to stay safe. All steps being taken by medical professionals to try and make sure that this situation remains contained. As a part of that, we heard from some of those medical officials and others as part of a press conference that happened just about 20 minutes ago. It ended. 25 minutes ago, this press conference ended. We got to watch a little bit of it live, but now we're going to listen in on the rest of it because, again, this story has generated as many questions and general interest as we've seen in a while here. So we're going to go right back out to this press conference. We're going to listen in as this is at the University of Nebraska. UC Nebraska Medicine, UNMC, University of Nebraska Medical Center. This is where those 17 Americans who left that cruise ship are now waiting as they transition back to regular life following what has, I'm surely, been a unbelievably difficult ordeal above that cruise ship. And so, yes, we continue with our coverage now. Let's listen in once again at the University of Nebraska.
We're in the process of evaluating all of the individuals, and as was mentioned, we're giving them a little bit of a rest period now, just given their ordeal. And then we are going to go back and jointly with our federal partners ask questions about their exposure and get a lot more information from that individual. And then we will make individualized decisions on testing based on those conversations. The individual in the biocontainment unit will be tested, and that's only because that individual did have this kind of equivocal positive test previously, not in the United States. And so we will be testing that individual, but the individuals in the quarantine unit, that will be a conversation and a lot of conversations between us and those individuals that are in the unit now.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in partnership with the Nebraska Public Health Lab and the university, we've developed and validated the necessary testing so that can all be done here and done quickly. And it's a PCR test.
If I can follow on what you were just saying about the individual in the biocontainment unit, has that person developed or shown any symptoms since they've been here? And do we know if there is any evidence that this could be transmitted by someone who is asymptomatic? I know that's not typically what happens, but is there evidence that that could happen?
So first question, the individual is doing well and not having any symptoms at this time, but again, just arrived a few hours ago, and so that will be an ongoing assessment, and we will continue to ask those questions and ensure that they remain asymptomatic. And second question was about transmitting without symptoms. So there are a lot of unknowns here, but as was mentioned earlier, it seems that with Hantavirus, the specific Andes virus, that this can be transmitted person to person, but it typically does require very close contact, and typically when those individuals are symptomatic. Now, again, recognizing that, like I said, although this is, there are some unknowns, and this is not a new virus. This is not the scenario that we encountered with COVID, where we had a brand new virus. So there is some information known about Andes virus, and we feel fortunate to at least have that. But again, this will be an ongoing assessment, and there are a lot of moving parts right now, but we'll do our best to take care of the individuals both in the quarantine unit and in the biocontainment unit and make sure they receive the best care.
Go ahead.
Just to make sure that we reiterate that even here at the quarantine center, the rooms have negative pressure so that the virus cannot leave the room generally, and then the ventilation is separate from the rest of the building, it goes right out, and then it's filtered through high-efficiency particulate air filters. So the risk to the general public for those patients who are here, even if they were to become symptomatic, is very, very minimal to none.
Yeah, and just to add on to that also, we're doing everything in our power to protect our healthcare workers who are wearing appropriate protective equipment, both in the biocontainment unit and in the national quarantine unit as well.
And just for clarification, especially you mentioned there were a lot of people who I'm sure harkens back to 6 years ago who were watching this. What is the definition of very close contact? What does that mean?
I may let our public health partners answer that a little more definitively. They're asking the definition of very close contact and what you would consider. And the reason I bring that up is because there are some guidelines that just came out on this.
Right, so there's guidance that you can look to specifically on our website about close contact and how that defines exposures. Typically, we're talking about exposure specifically to bodily fluids, and then that could include things like saliva. So if you're sharing eating utensils, kissing, touching, those type of things. It can also mean just being really, really close to that person for a fairly long period of time. So we're calling that 6 feet for at least a cumulative number of 15 minutes. I want to be clear, there's nothing magical about 6 feet. It's not a force field, but it's a rough number that gives us a sense of how close somebody has been. 15 minutes, again, it's a bit arbitrary, but it again gives some sense of how close someone has been. I think that's actually a fairly conservative approach given how we know, how the evidence we have so far about how this virus has spread.
Okay, that press conference ongoing. We may have time to revisit. We come out of it for now, though, because President Trump has just gone live at the White House for a maternal health care event. We do want to note that he is scheduled to travel to China today to eventually have a summit with the president of China, Xi Jinping, in the midst of this war in Iran. Let's listen in live now at the White House.
Get a story of I think I'm going to ask Walmart for a little help, if you don't mind, because you people seem to get very good. You get very good publicity. I think you should be, if you could explain the trick, then let me know. But since we launched the website just a few months ago, over 19,000 Americans have used those fertility medicines and discounts and saved more than $15 million just in a short period of time, very matter of weeks. The Council of Economic Advisors projects that the number will rise to $4.6 billion over a fairly small number of years. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. And we had to get the countries. First, we had to get the companies. And the companies were pretty good, but they knew I couldn't get the countries. So they didn't care that much. I think when we got the countries, I think they said, what's going on? And yet, they've done fine. They do more business, and they do it from, they made it up in volume, right? They made it up in volume, as the old story went. There are many other ways our administration is supporting moms and women. We passed the largest working family tax cuts in American history. By far, we passed the largest tax cuts, not only for women, for everybody, but for women. So many working women, we passed the largest tax cuts in history. We also made a historic investment in rural health with $50 billion distributed across all 50 states, and that gives each state a lot of money over the next 5 years. $10 billion has already been distributed, and you see the results all over the rural part of the United States, which I'm proud to say I won by about 80% of the vote. And many states are investing in improving maternal health care. Every Democrat in Congress voted against this historic funding. The Democrats, well, they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, to be honest. They don't even know what they're looking at. They can't even see straight. But I have a new way out. I'm going to propose something the opposite of what I want, and we will have massive amounts of legislation. No, just all I have to do is say, we will not build the wall. And they'll
Diabolically clever.
No, I'm going to do it, Katie. We'll put it in. I'm going to go the opposite. Whatever is bad, I'm going to go for it, and they'll approve what's good, finally. No, they've got serious Trump derangement syndrome, which actually is a disease. I'm hearing it is actually a disease. It's an honor. Today, we're also enacting groundbreaking child care reforms to improve federal child care programs, including Head Start and Child Care Development Fund that goes to each state. It's big stuff. These reforms will give states more flexible, lower costs, increase options, and empower parents to choose what care works best for them. There's a lot of options that you're going to have. Under this plan, you have, I think, pretty much maximum, Heidi, I think maximum options. And that's what we were looking for, maximum options at the lowest cost. And you've got a cost that if you were here a year ago, or if you were here like during the last administration, you're talking about a cost that would be 8 to 10 times more expensive than what we're doing. And same exact prescription, same exact medicine, same care at 10%. It'll also free up child care funding for hundreds of thousands of additional children to support stay-at-home parents. In recognition of this ambitious agenda to support American mothers, today we're announcing a new website that is online right now. It's moms.gov. Moms.gov. You couldn't have put that in the Trump deal. You had to give me a new one, competition. This guy, he wants to make me work so hard. So explain moms.gov, would you please, Dr. Oz?
Well, we're going to have a whole discussion about it, sir, a little bit later. If we could, we want Katie to speak a bit about the first issue you mentioned. But moms.gov is a beautiful site. Folks ought to check it right now while we're talking.
Yeah, you really should, and it's pretty incredible. Something that Senator Rubio and I tried to do, sir, but you're the one who actually did it, along with.
Well, I like TrumpRx.gov.
He likes that.
No,
I mean, I love moms. I love moms, but I like TrumpRx.gov. You put me in there, I got to make sure. He gives me competition now. He wants her to work. That's all right. We're only kidding. I have to say we're kidding, otherwise they'll do. Trump and Oz had a major dispute. It was terrible. And Bobby broke them up. It was a terrible, terrible dispute. These people. I encourage every mom to visit this new page where they will find helpful information about addressing clinical care, pregnancy resources, nutrition tips, Trump RX, and Trump Accounts. Trump Accounts has been amazing for the kids. It's Michael and Susan Dell. They put in $6,250,000,000 started it, and that's another one that's gone through the Trump accounts, where young kids, they turn 18 or 20 or 21, and they feel like a billionaire. You used to say a millionaire, now you say a billionaire, but they certainly feel rich, as opposed to having absolutely nothing. It's so popular. So many people are doing it. We have people, in one case, took over the entire state of Ohio. It's putting up the money for every kid in the state of Ohio. Supporting the journey of American moms at every stage is so important to the success of our nation. I'd now like to ask Senator Katie Britt. She's the one that got me into this, I have to tell you. I hope she always remains loyal to me so I can continue to support her.
You got
I would hate to go against her. That will never happen, Katie, right?
That's right, sir.
But to say just a few words, she's really a fantastic woman. She's a great senator. And I got lucky. I was supporting somebody else, and then I realized that somebody else wasn't very good. And I said, who's that young woman I met that was so impressive? They say, her name is Katie Britt. I said, let me talk to her. I talked to her. I endorsed her. She won a landslide. And you've been winning in landslides ever since. So you've been doing a great job, Katie. Thank you very much. I thought I should explain it.
Thank you.
To say a few words, Katie's going to say, and followed by Monique Pruitt, and then Olivia Walton, then Dr. Oz and Dr. Dorothy Fink, and Dr. Alex Adams. And you'll speak not too long because I am being waited on by a large group of generals. And that's also important, you know, having to do having to do with the absolutely lovely country of Iran. That's the way they pronounce it.
Well, we will get started then.
Okay.
Mr. President, thank you for your work. We are here, guys. This is another example of promises made, promises kept. I mean, we look at what President Trump did when we dealt with this issue in Alabama. He stepped up to the plate immediately to make sure that we had nationwide access to IVF, to making sure that we had comprehensive fertility treatment, so that men and women, couples who were longing for their child, could continue to have that hope and also have that reality. Today doubles down on that yet again. I mean, we see the savings that have happened across the country, and I've had more and more people come up to me and tell me a story about what it has saved them. But we also know that there was opportunity for continued growth. President Trump saw that and he acted on it. So now more people are going to have access through their employer, just like they would dental or vision insurance. And there are people right now who this is out of reach because of affordability, and President Trump is bringing that back in. When you look at the comprehensive nature of what we're doing today and coming on the heels of Mother's Day, I mean, we are thrilled to support mothers everywhere. Whether it's that mom that is getting to experience growing life for the very first time, or the one chasing toddlers or wrangling teenagers, or being there when their adult child calls for advice. Moms are the heartbeats of our families, our communities, and our country. President Trump knows that, and he's made sure we've created a comprehensive culture of life. That's what you see right now with moms.gov. Moms.gov was something that then Senator Rubio and I talked about doing with Senator Kramer and now Senator Schmidt, but of course, President Trump is actually the one that put it into action. It supports moms through the prenatal, postpartum, and early childhood development stages of motherhood. Also, as we tackle rural health, look, I stand up here in front of you not only as a mom of two, but also as someone who lives in the great state of Alabama, where about 28% of women live in a current maternal care desert. The work that we did in the Working Families Tax Cuts, guys, that hits it head on. We have an opportunity now to reach those who haven't been reached. When we look at maternal mortality rates, we continue to invest both in the research that will help us resolve that issue, but also in the women that deal with so many issues during their pregnancy. We want them to be supported. And then in addition to all of that, childcare. So we know last year alone, you had about 455,000 women leave the workforce due to affordability and accessibility of childcare. We've often said, and the President and I have talked about this, if you have or want the opportunity to stay home, we want that for you. But if you want or need the opportunity to re-enter the workforce and want to be a part of building back America, like President Trump is doing, we don't want affordability or accessibility to be an impediment to that. So not only at his direction, and I was proud to lead the effort in the Working Families Tax Cuts to modernize the tax code to make sure that childcare was front and center for the first time since Ronald Reagan, sir. You're the first one to do it. But today, that comprehensive nature of whether you're staying home or you're in a faith-based provider or you have a child care center that you lovingly send your child to during the day as you work to provide for your family. Today, that is easier as a result, and we are proud of what that means for the economy. We know 24% of young families, young families spend about 24% of their annual income on child care. So, Mr. President, thank you for all that you've done creating a comprehensive culture of life. This is really groundbreaking.
So do you see now why I endorsed her? So
Yes.
Yes. And always will. I'd be afraid not to. She also is married to the largest human being I've ever met. Her husband is great. He's a 11-year player in the NFL, an all-star, one of the greatest college football players ever at what he does. So he's a fantastic person. Two really fantastic people. Monique Pruitt speaks about Trump RX.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. President and Senator Brett, for all the work and the teams that have done so much around this. This is a very important topic, so glad to be here. I have personally used Trump RX and I've saved thousands of dollars on my medication. As President Trump mentioned, a lot of insurances did not cover this. Looks like they will be now, so that's wonderful. Thank you. Even so, some don't cover the medication portion. That can be a separate pharmaceutical cost. So Trump RX has brought a lot of the prices of medications down. For me personally, Gonal F has been one of the main medicines that people use for egg retrievals, and that I could not find it anywhere on any other website or for cheaper. So thank you so much to you guys for doing all the work. We really appreciate it from the IVF community.
It's been amazing, hasn't it, the difference in cost? It's just incredible. I mean, you're talking about something where it goes down 5, 6, 7 times. And I tell the story often. I was so proud. My first term, 1/8 of 1%. I reduced drug costs during my 3rd year. 1/8 of 1%. And that's the first time in 28 years that prices went down. And I was so proud. I had a news conference remember that?
I was there, yes.
Ladies and I'd like to just say that prices have gone down 1/8 of 1%, which is the first time in 28 years that prices have gone down for prescription drug prices and other. I was so proud of that. And now I reduced them by 500%. Perhaps that's experience. I always knew that, we were being just absolutely decimated. But, I was hunted. I was the hunter. Now I'm the... I was the hunted then, and I had to devote a lot of time to that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been too effective. Yeah. If I was out of office, I wouldn't have been. I was hunted by some very bad people. Now I'm the hunter. It's much better when you're the hunter, but these are bad people, and they'll give you no support at all, no matter how good it is. I mean, as an example, I don't know what the numbers are, but if we go to Congress to get something approved, which we get. But you can say that we're going to reduce drug prices by 80%, and we won't get one Democrat vote. I don't know how they get away with it. That's why we call them the Democrats. We have a new name. They're Democrats because they're dumb. They're dumb people, and they just can't do it. I've been waiting so long for them to change, but they just keep losing, and they're going to keep losing with their policies. But we reduce prices by 70, 80%, and it's such a big deal. I'd like to ask Olivia Walton, who's here with her very handsome husband, Tom. Thank you, Tom, for being here. Thank you very much. And you're going to speak about maternal health care.
Mr. President, I'm going to introduce Olivia, if you don't mind. By the way, before we leave the last topic, it's the leader of EMDs Toronto, which makes one of the most important fertility drugs, is here. Just to remind you, because you've been giving different percentages, Monique's price of getting a product is 1/10 of what it used to be. So 1/10. Forget about percentages. That's an easy number to remember. And the fact that we were paying 10 times more for that same drug in America is embarrassing. It changed under the president, and presidents have known her for a long time. But it takes guts to take on important lobbies.
So why didn't they get it done?
Well, the main reason is they were intimidated. They're scared.
Or incompetent.
Or incompetent. But I've had plenty of conversations with the president when he says he doesn't care, he wants to do the right thing, and this is a good example.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, Katie Britt's husband's here. I just spotted this very large, handsome guy. I said, oh, there he is. That's a great guy. Okay, go ahead.
So let me speak a little bit about the reality that 1 in 3 Americans are underbabied. What does underbabied mean? That means that you either don't have any children or you have less children than you would normally want to have. And to Katie's point, we have a crisis that's causing our fertility rate to drop below 1.5. The replacement rate is 2.1. So we're way below what we need just to replace the people that we have in America. And one of the challenges is that rural America, where there's 60 million people, have a mortality rate, maternal mortality rate when they have babies, that's about 30% higher than if you live in an urban area. One of the ways the president wanted to address this was creating something in the Working Families Tax Cut legislation, which is, I think, the most ambitious, fantastic program ever written to help fix the healthcare system. The president saved Medicaid in the Working Families Tax Cut legislation. He also invested with Congress's help, and Senator Britt and her colleagues voted for this out of the House, to put in $50 billion into rural health care. That's $10 billion a year for the next 5 years. All the money went out the door on time, and it's being used for incredibly beneficial advances to help Americans living in rural America have babies safely. Your zip code should not determine your mortality rate if you're having a baby. That is going to change. There's a great program in southern Alabama. They call it LA, Lower Alabama.
I love that you know that.
Yes, I've been there. And that is allowing us to use these new ultrasound probes now if you don't have an obstetrician in your county, because in many counties in LA, which is Lower Alabama, that is the case. We have states, and all the governors are embraced on this, investing a lot of money training more people to work in rural America. And we're also using telehealth tools, so you have big, sophisticated urban centers adopting smaller facilities, clinics, so they can help moms deliver babies wherever they may live. You don't have to drive across state to get there. Now, as great as this all is, and as fantastic as it has been to have 50 governors, in this case, Mr. President, even the Democratic governors are on board. It's such a good offer. It's such a beautiful way of keeping your people healthy that everyone's embraced this program. We still can't do it by ourselves. We have to invest in the American people. We have to have governors and private sector partners that make this happen, as well as, and I hope the Secretary can speak to this in a moment, because MAHA is probably vital to this effort. You have to get moms healthy enough to do the most creative thing the universe knows, which is making babies. So Olivia, maybe you can take the message around the private sector involvement and how you and your family have gotten involved in this and led the way, and maybe we can talk about MAHA afterwards.
Sure, I would love to. And first, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, back here in the studio as that event at the White House continues. Moms.gov launching here what's described on the Health and Human Services Web Center as a platform to support expecting parents and new mothers with guidance and information for all mothers and their families, a first-of-its-kind resource. Again, that's hhs.gov, describing this moms.gov new resource and platform here. Now, we've come out of that. President Trump still at that meeting, is expected again to go to China today. That's something we're keeping an eye on here because the results of that meeting could have major impacts on the war in Iran. It remains to be seen. For us here, we're going to do a commercial break real quick. When we get back, as you can see, plenty of live events still to cover. We may go back out to the White House if that's still happening when we return, so stay with us. Okay, welcome back. Still here on Live Impact News. About 11:30. We got a quarter of the show left in front of us here on this Monday afternoon, and we are going to go back out live to the White House. This event still happening. Moms.gov has been announced today. And, well, it had been announced yesterday, but they've spoken quite a bit about it, a new digital resource for families, moms, expecting moms, as they try to navigate an exciting but also very challenging time in life. So let's go live back out to the White House and listen in here as that event is ongoing.
Higher costs for everyone. President Trump, you are taking a different approach. Under your leadership, we're advancing a child care reform package that puts parents back in charge. We're going to do three primary things. First, we're restoring parental choice. That means bringing faith-based providers back to the table, and it means recognizing the vital role played by home-based providers, relatives, and parents who choose to stay home during the earliest years of their children's lives. Second, we are cutting unnecessary red tape that forced providers to close, limited access to care, and made it harder for working families to find the support they needed. We're moving away from one-size-fits-all federal mandates and instead empowering parents to meet their child's unique needs. And then third, we're strengthening accountability to ensure taxpayer dollars are protected from fraudsters. Under the Biden administration, they essentially backed the Brinks truck up to states and sent the security home. We think Americans deserve better. We will ensure that these funds go to families who truly need support. Our goal is simple: more affordable options, more providers, more choices for parents, and more accountability for taxpayers. Mr. President, your pro-family agenda recognizes a simple truth: strong families build a strong nation. And if I could just end on a personal note, Mr. President, I want to thank you for your leadership and everybody up here for their leadership on fertility issues. My beautiful baby girl, Emerson, is a product of IVF, and I thank you for your leadership on that issue and sharing the joy of parenthood with many, many more American families. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. It's great to know. It's been really successful under this administration. And again, Katie, you were so helpful. Bobby, do you have something to say?
Very, very briefly, Mr. President, I just wanted to stress what a huge win for the MAHA movement and for the pro-life movement Moms.gov is. It is one-stop shopping for IVF, for prenatal care, for postnatal care, for nutrition, for baby formula, and of course for Trump RX. We have, as Dr. Oz pointed out, a fertility crisis in this country right now. We just found out that we've dropped now to 1.57%. The replacement rate is 2.1. 100 years ago, we were at 3.27, so more than double than we are today. We are approaching the cataclysmic rates that Japan and China are now experiencing that is threatening their economy. It's a threat not only to our economy, to our national security, it's a direct threat to our Social Security Trust Fund, to the Medicare Trust Fund. President Trump has directed my agency to find out the cause of the fertility crisis, and that is part of this program. We're looking at the impact of metabolic challenges, which directly affect fertility, of obesity, which affects fertility, of endocrine disruptors, of pesticides, of this toxic soup that our young women are walking around today to try to figure it out. The fertility crisis for women began in 2007. For men in 1970, men had twice the sperm count as our teenagers do today. This is an existential crisis for our country. We had a series of presidents that were trying to discourage childbirth and motherhood in this country. We now have a president that is trying to encourage it, and I want to thank you again for your leadership.
Thank you very much, Bobby. And there's another word, autism, that we're very much involved with. And I have my own ideas, but Oz and Bobby and everybody, they're really focused on it very hard. I think in a certain way, I would like you to look at the payment schedules, Bobby, because I think it's very skewed because of the payment schedules. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
We're bringing you some ideas.
I think it
Mr.
has to
President.
be. I think it's crazy. I think that's what's happening. You can't pay more for that to a doctor. I mean, every person around is going to have autism. That's what's happening. So, because I really believe that that's very badly skewed. But more importantly, but I would like that done immediately. But more importantly, I think that some great progress has been made as to why, what is this thing that's happening all over the world, but here, what is it? What's going on? And there has to be something, because it spiked so much over the last 10 years. It's spiked over the last 15 years. It's gone up many, many times. And I think it's a very important thing to mention. I mention it all the time, having to do with other subjects, and then I bring in autism. Anything having to do with medical, I always bring in autism. On another topic, we're looking very seriously at natural 7-OH and getting that approved, natural 7-OH. And we'll take a look at that very strongly. I think Oz and everybody, we're looking to see if we can do something there. A lot of people are asking for it. And thank you very much for the work on that. And with that, do you have any questions?
Mr. President, you mentioned that you were going to be meeting with the generals on Iran. You rejected a deal from Iran over the weekend. Can you tell us anything about that proposal, and what, if any, effort was made to break this deal?
Yeah, it was just unacceptable. A lot of people said, well, does he have a plan? Yeah, of course I do I have the best plan ever. I mean, Iran has been defeated militarily, totally. They have a little left. They probably built up during this period of time. We'll knock that out in about a day. But I have a plan. It is a very simple plan. I don't know why you don't say it like it is. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They're very dangerous. They're very volatile. It's a terrible thing that's happened over there. They've killed 42,000 people in the last 2 months. 42,000. At least that's what we know of. 42,000 people. They killed numerous people over the last week, but they killed 42,000 people a month and a half ago. They were unarmed protesters, not at all violent protesters, and they started taking them out, shooting them. So we're not going to let them. That's the plan. People say, what's the plan? The plan is very simple. The blockade, first of all, was a part of military genius, just like Venezuela was military genius. We have the greatest military in the world by far, and we're stocked up with great ammunition. We have much better stuff than we did 2 months ago when we first did the attack, which knocked them for a loop. But very simple, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They can't have it. And if they did have it, the Middle East would be gone, Israel would be gone, and they'd hit Europe probably next. We're doing the service to the world. And this has gone on for 47 years. Other presidents and leaders of other countries that have the power should have done it, but they didn't do it. But it's a very simple plan. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, and they didn't want to go that far. If you can believe it, they didn't. How stupid. Are they stupid people? They didn't want to believe it. They think that, well, I'll get tired of this, or I'll get bored, or I'll have some pressure, but there's no pressure. There's no pressure at all. We're going to have a complete victory. We've already, in theory, had a complete victory from the military standpoint. The military, look, their Navy is dead. They had 159 ships. Right now they have 0, other than the little speedboats that go around that got taken out 8 a day by us. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft. Now, they probably put the shoulder jobs into service over the last 3 weeks, probably. But essentially, they have no anti-aircraft, they have no radar. And frankly, their leaders have been killed at the first level, second level, and half at the third level. And then they come back and they want to negotiate, and they give us it's a stupid proposal. And nobody would take it, although Obama would have taken it, Biden would have taken it. What they took was far worse. So we stopped them twice. We stopped them when I terminated the worst deal probably ever made in the history of our country in terms of defense. That was the Iran nuclear deal by penned by Barack Hussein Obama. That would have given Iran a nuclear weapon within a year. They would have had it years ago. I terminated that in my first term. And then when that beautiful plane right there hit them hard, we really hit them hard. And they told me, I want to just tell you this because they like to say, oh, well, maybe it wasn't that hard a hit. Iran told me very strongly, because they intend to give us the nuclear dust, as I call it. It's easier than talking about other terms because it's a term everyone knows. But the nuclear dust, which is what we hit, they told me, number one, you're getting it, but you're going to have to take it out because the site was so obliterated that there's only 1 or 2 countries in the world that could get it. It's so deep and got hit so hard that there's no way they have the equipment to move it. You and China are the only 2 countries in the world that could take it out. So we talked about it, and they said, you'll have to take it out because we don't have the capability of doing it. So for those people that like to say that those great pilots in those great planes, well, we just ordered 22 more of them, new and improved, that those great pilots didn't do their job, they did their job. At 1 o'clock in the morning with no moon, no light, no nothing, every single bomb hit its targets. And then, as you know, we shot some incredible things. There's things that nobody else has. Nobody has a military like we have. We shot the Tomahawks from a submarine 200 miles away, and that went on top of it. But every one of those, including the Tomahawks, every one of those weapons and shots hit perfectly. And they said to me, just to put it on the record, they said to me, there are only 2 countries in the entire world that could ever get that stuff out of there because we don't have the equipment and nobody else. They said China and the United States. So I just want to let you know those pilots did an unbelievable job, very dangerous job at 1 o'clock in the morning. Think of it. No moon, no nothing. We had no light, purposely. And every single one of those bombs were right down an air chute in a granite mountain that exploded. And they are unable to get it, even if they wanted to. But we're not going to take a chance. So that's part of the deal.
So, sir, are you saying the Iranians agreed to allow the removal of all their enriched uranium?
Yeah. Well, they did it 2 days ago. They didn't, okay? They did 2 days ago. They said, you're going to have to take it. We were going to go with them. But they changed their mind because they didn't put it in the paper. So when they sent us this document that we waited 4 days for, that should have taken 10 minutes to do, look, very simple. We get that. They guarantee no nuclear weapons for a very long period of time, and a couple of other minor things, but they just can't get there. So they agree with us, and then they take it back. But they said to us that it was so badly obliterated, was the word they actually used. That was my original word. Then it got challenged by some of the fake news. And it wasn't challenged with any knowledge. It was just challenged like they were hoping that this wouldn't have been so successful. No, it was obliterated. We have the greatest military in the world. I built it largely in my first term, and I didn't know I'd be using it quite this much in my second term. But very simply, when they say, does he have a plan? Yeah, I have a plan. The plan is very simple. You know, in war, you have to change. You have to be flexible. You have a lot of plans, but you have to do different plans in different days. But I have a great plan. But the plan is they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they didn't say that in their letter.
Mr. President, given the leadership changes that you've talked about in Iran, is this still a leadership that you believe you can negotiate with and ultimately reach a peace
I think
deal
so.
with?
Well, you have 2. You have the moderates and you have the lunatics. And I think the moderates are more respected. The lunatics want to fight till the end. You know, it'll be a very quick fight. But I call them. You have, just like our country, we have lunatics too. I call them lunatics. I call them stupid people too. But in Iran, they have the moderates that are dying to make a deal, and then you have the lunatics, and I guess they're a little bit afraid of the lunatics, but and why not? The level of ferocity for protest, you know, the people are watching it. They want to go out on the streets. They have no weapons. They have no guns. We thought the Kurds were going to give us weapons, but the Kurds disappointed us. The Kurds take. They have a great reputation in Congress. Congress says, oh, they fight so hard. No, they fight hard when they get paid. So I'm very disappointed in the Kurds. But they were given, I said it wasn't going to work, by the way. I just have to say it. I disagreed with what they did. They gave it. I said, they'll never get there. And I was right. I like to be right. In this case, too bad. But we sent some guns with ammunition, and they were supposed to be delivered, but they kept it. I said they're going to keep it, but what do I know? I've only been doing this a short period of time. What do I know?
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place?
What?
For the time being, the ceasefire remains in place?
You know, it's unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now, after reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand these are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Bad prognostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living. Yeah.
Mr. President,
Daniel, go ahead.
Yep.
One of the best reporters in Washington.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
sir. Dr. Oz referenced this a little early. 2 questions on healthcare, if I can. The Council of Economic Advisors released a report saying that the most favored nation drug deals will generate about $529 billion in domestic savings over the next 10 years across all markets. How transformative are these deals?
And makes people better.
Yeah, it does. How transformative are these deals for millions of Americans? And do you believe that the most favored nation drug deals are the Republicans' golden ticket to the midterms?
I think the Republicans should walk away with the midterms. Now, typically, whoever is president, they vote the other way. Nobody knows this. Do we have a psychiatrist in the group? Nobody knows why, because I think we've had the best president. A lot of people have said, even some radical left lunatics have said that we've had the best presidency, the best first year of any president. Look, I stopped 8 wars, got the largest tax cuts in history, the largest regulation cuts in history, all the things we've done, so many, like all of this that we've done. Medically, we've done so much. You know, we did a thing called Right to Try at my first, and I could never understand it when I was a civilian, which wasn't so long ago. I haven't been doing it that long, but I always used to marvel at the fact that if they had a great drug and it had to go through the FDA, and the FDA guarded it and said you can't use it, and if a
Okay, back here in the studio, and we are going to take a brief commercial break. When we return, if that Oval Office event is still happening, we'll go back to it. Let's go over a couple of very quick things. Sarah, this won't take long. Obviously, it has been noted by President Trump over and over again that his plan is for Iran not to have a nuclear weapon. He was not happy with the proposal they sent back that they responded with after the weekend in the attempts to find peace in the war in Iran. And he has stated over and over again that he's still looking to make sure they don't have a nuclear weapon. He has referenced the previous Iran nuclear deal from 2015 in this very meeting here. So I wanted to give a small amount of context on that because it seems to keep coming up. Signed in 2015 by Iran and several world powers, including the United States, the JCPOA placed significant restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. President Trump withdrew the United States from the deal in 2018, claiming it failed to curtail Iran's missile program and regional influence. So that is the Council on Foreign Relations.org information on that Iran nuclear agreement that Trump has referenced within this very meeting. All right, quick commercial break. When we get back to the White House. Welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us today on Live Impact News. We'll head back to the Oval Office. This was originally an event about maternity. Moms.gov will be launching here with resources for families, but they've begun taking questions from the press as well here. So let's go back out to the White House.
Literally have the President and Dr. Oz and Secretary Kennedy doing everything possible to give our son a fighting chance. They said before, no one was listening, but you, Mr. President, took action. And Will Roberts, he is such a great young man.
Well, Right
He's
to
inspired
Try is,
so many people.
Nobody talks about
We're with him.
thousands of people, but it's also like this incredible laboratory of people that they're finished, they're terminally ill, they're not going to live. And we weren't given, and this went on for years. This went on, Madam Secretary, you're doing such a good job with prices, agriculture. How's the beef doing? We got to get the beef down.
We're working on it.
It's the only thing, we got to get the beef down. But
It's becoming
but
more affordable.
This was so incredible because, and I marveled at it for 30 years and say, why? I'd have friends that were terminally ill. You'd meet people. They were really in bad shape. They weren't going to make it. And they couldn't get a drug that looked like it was going to work. They couldn't get it. They asked me to get it. You have contacts, could you get it? You couldn't get it. You go to jail if you get, and they were going to die. They'd die 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. And we're saving a lot of people that were gone, that were terminally ill. And what we're doing is producing almost immediately. You can almost immediately approve these drugs. But it was very, look, legally it was a disaster because everybody would be sued. The problem is somebody would die, and then they blame the drug, and then the drug company gets sued, the doctors, the country gets sued. A member of the family goes crazy, and you're settling for millions of dollars because you killed somebody that was going to be dead in 2 weeks. So I did that, and I'm very proud of it. The other thing, doctor mentioned the fat drug. So think of it. $87 it would sell in London, and $1,300 in New York for the exact same box, made, I won't name the company, made by the same company in the same facility. $87 in London, $87 in Heidelberg, $87 in Paris, $1,370 in New York. And this went on for a long time. And I want to tell you, he could be a famous guy. He's begging me not to release his name. He's a very highly neurotic, very fat, sort of a fat slob, I would call him. But he's a brilliant man. We know many of those people. He's a brilliant guy, actually. But he said, President, what the hell's going on here? He didn't need the money. He's rich as hell. But he just couldn't understand why he had to pay so little in London. He went to London, and he couldn't understand it. He said, this is crazy. And it actually motivated me in a certain way because he was very smart. He did a study. He actually sent his people, and he traced this medicine, and he found out it was, the box here is the same box as he had in New York. It was made in the same plant, and it cost 10 times more here than it did in London. And that there were worse stories than that. And I said, that's it. It's over. We're going to do it. That got me really motivated. He's begging me not to release his name because he is a well-known person. And I've so destroyed his reputation in terms of his physicality that he just doesn't want me. I said, you've had a big impact on medicine because you got to me better than any normal person could have, He said, no, I don't want to. Okay, yeah, please.
Mr. President, what do you hope to get out of the summit in China, and how much has the war in Iran changed the agenda?
Look, I have a great relationship with President Xi. We're doing a lot of business, but it's smart business. We used to be taken advantage of for years with our previous presidents, and now we're doing great with China. We make a lot of money with China. I have a great relationship with President Xi, and I think you can see that with the fact that in Hormuz, they get a big percentage, 40% of their oil from Hormuz. There's been no ships coming in, no nasty ships coming in that we end up in skirmishes with. He'd like to see it get done. He doesn't want to see, I'll tell you what, look, I respect him a lot, and hopefully he respects me. He didn't respect our previous government, that I can tell you. The guy couldn't talk. It was ridiculous how that ever happened. Our country was hurt so badly the last 4 years. I say it all the time. It was the king of Saudi Arabia, but everybody says we were a dead country a year and a half ago, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And you know that better than anybody. You know, you see that. Olivia sees that. You see it in the numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at the stock market. The stock market is now higher than it was when this war started. So I thought that would go down 20, 25%. It was fine. You know, I'm willing to, it's a terrible expression, take a bullet. It's a terrible expression, especially when it's used by me. But I'm willing to take a bullet for the country. And I said, look, the stock market's going to go down, but we're going to have a threat of lunatics having a nuclear weapon. I deal with them. I say it to them. I say, you people are crazy. I deal with them. They talk differently. I say, you're crazy. You're crazy people. You're nuts. You're not having a nuclear weapon. They think they can talk me into it, and they don't do very well with it. But they know how I feel. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They would use it within an hour after getting it. If the Obama deal wasn't terminated by me, they would have had it 6 years ago. And they would have used it immediately on Israel and also the rest of the Middle East. You saw that when they started shooting rockets. Nobody thought Saudi Arabia and Qatar and UAE were going to get hit, or Kuwait, Bahrain. I think it was a tremendous strategic mistake, and they wasted those missiles. We have the Patriots that knocked them down every time. You know, I told the story, we were shot at one of our great assets, happened to be a ship, great ship. 111 missiles going at very high rates of speed, sophisticated equipment.
Okay, so that continues on there at the Oval Office. It's been going for some time now, actually. We've got to spend a lot of live time there talking about not just moms.gov, but obviously a number of different topics after the Q&A portion started, and even before that. You heard questions about China and President Xi Jinping. President Trump is scheduled to go to China at some point today. We don't know when that'll be, but he is headed to China for a summit with Xi Jinping. As he said there, we know that, China has had a close relationship with Iran, especially economically, but they do depend on some of those water passageways for their own oil. So we'll see where that goes, and that'll do it for us here on Live Impact News this morning. For Sarah Calloway, I'm Connor Real. Thanks for watching.